This YouTuber ended Regretevator with one response and you'll never guess what he said. This YouTuber is named It's Something, and this situation just got crazier with his new response video, where he says things that will literally blow your mind and that you will not want to miss. But just a quick recap, if you don't know who It's Something is, they made NSFW videos of Roblox games for their channel for kids to see, and the other things that they did were wild, that I will literally be explaining throughout this entire video, so stay tuned. But before I get to that, if you guys can subscribe to my channel right now to get me to 10,000 subscribers today, because we can literally get to 10,000 subscribers today, so subscribe. But here's a brief recap of everything that has happened. It's Something was 23 when they were messaging someone that was 14 with very inappropriate messages that I'm going to be reading over again, and you won't want to miss those messages because what happens in those messages is actually sickening and disturbing. And It's Something actually covers that in his response video that actually just makes it even more demented and twisted. So you will not want to miss that either. It is crazy and it will blow your mind up. But his response video's name is actually wild. Now for the real truth.
More than 2 years ago, I was the subject of a controversy involving one of my former friends, Sniffer, or Will. On June 4th, 2023, he posted a thread on Twitter where he detailed my behavior in our private messages, claiming my messages were too inappropriate, as I was then 23 years old and he 14. He also put forth accusations of grooming based on discussions he had with other parties. These claims are unfounded, and I want to share my side of the story to explain why. A year prior, I became one of his followers as I had enjoyed his art and wanted to support him.
And he was such a big supporter that he decided to message a minor that was 14 years old things that you should just never message a minor. So here's just a few of the messages that he decided to send a minor while he was 23 that will blow your mind and actually give you an aneurysm. Okay, my drawings include obscure kinks, but I think most people would just think the drawings are odd but not provocative. It's a very interesting position, lol. And this was the very first message that he sent to the 14-year-old when he was 23. And somehow it just gets worse and it'll make your eyes want to rip out of its sockets. And it'll make your brain want to bleed, so trust me, this just gets way worse. Romantic is eek, sexual is what the actual hides my Rule 34 folder. Okay, it's just one drawing, and I downloaded it because it looked great. Yes, because this is a totally normal conversation to have with a kid when they're 14 and you're 23. But these next messages literally just want me to claw my brain out of my head, so trust me, it'll make you want to feel the same way too. Just look at this. I do in fact have Pokemon Rule 34. Will, please. Where did Pokemon even come up in this conversation? Like, that's fine that you have that or whatever, just don't share it to a kid that's 14 and underage. But it seems like the only messages this guy really ever sent to this 14-year-old were very weird. And this next message will literally make your eyeballs fall out. Looks at 18 plus object, show arts folder. They should be more upset that people are doing it with Pokemon. Looks at my Rule 34 folder. Yeah, I totally agree. But trust me, later on in this video, he actually tries to defend this next message and the messages after this. And these messages are actually so undefendable that I'm surprised he even tries. I hope you're comfortable being yourself around me. Maybe too comfortable, haha. Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't show my parents my drawings anymore, lol. Why? Probably because I drew mostly suggestive stuff. Yeah, that one literally just put the nail in the coffin for his entire career for me. Because under no circumstances should you be talking about that with a 14-year-old, no less someone that's under the age of 18. But in his response video, he says the stupidest, most delirious thing that he could possibly think of. So just watch this.
After a few months, he took notice and asked me privately if we'd like to be friends. I said yes, and we began a year-long friendship through private messages. What struck me immediately is how he reminded me of when I was his age, and I knew I would understand where he was coming from, so I was immediately comfortable talking to him and making jokes. Ultimately, it would be these jokes at the center of the controversy, but at the time, I thought nothing of them. Our conversations were almost entirely sharing in each other's interests and giving each other advice when the time came. The particular messages that Will showed in his thread are taken from their original contexts.
So you're basically admitting that all of the messages that I just read were from their original context that you sent to a 14-year-old when you were 23. And it's actually shocking to see how delusional this guy is. But trust me, throughout this video, you'll see how crazy and delusional he really is. Where he genuinely tries to say that it was a good thing that he actually didn't send drawings to a 14-year-old even though he shouldn't be having these conversations with a 14-year-old in the first place. And it looks like he genuinely thinks that that's a good thing that he didn't send those in the first place. Even though that's just common sense and the bare minimum to do when you're messaging a child. But clearly that just doesn't click for him because it seems like he completely goes off the rails later in this video and completely loses his mind. And you'll want to see what I'm talking about because it'll blow your mind and it'll make your eyes fall out of your sockets because of how delusional this guy is. But if you think he's delusional already, just comment down below delusional.
This in mind, it makes sense why people see these messages and assume ill intent. But today will be the first time you get to see the context. In the second tweet of his thread, he claims I would talk to him about sexual topics and make jokes about my kinks. This is only partially true.
He could have just pleaded ignorance right there and not understood what he was saying. But he completely understood what he was saying and he still did it. But the things that he later says in this video are actually delusional and literally psychopathic. And later on in this video, I will also talk about the comments in this video because I think they're very interesting because most of them are really disagreeing with this guy, but then there's a large portion of his audience that also just agrees that this isn't grooming for some reason, even though it is grooming. So just wait until you see those messages because they will make your eyes bleed.
I never talked to him about anything sexually explicit. Everything he claims falls into sexual topics are passing mentions of art I never described in detail. What he claims are jokes about my kinks? This is true, but only the subject of one of them, burping. I never said anything more than that. Now to explain the context of the messages in this thread. One of our first conversations was about our feelings about people seeing our art. He explained he didn't like the pressure of people being interested in his art, and I responded by telling him I had reservations about people seeing mine, since most of it was suggestive.
Why would you even have to add the suggestive part? Just leave it there. Just end the conversation right there. You didn't have to add that part. Also, there's literally no universe where you should be talking about kinks to a child. This guy is literally a child because he is 14 and you were 23. Especially at the time of you recording this, you should not be talking about that. This was in 2022. So that means the 14-year-old that he was talking to isn't even an adult still. They're literally 17 by my math. I might be wrong, but they are. 17 if my math is correct. But the next thing that he says actually hurts my brain and wants me to actually have a brain aneurysm after listening to it. And trust me, it'll make you want to have the same thing because what he says just makes no fucking sense. Because it ends up being so delusional and so disprovable that I will literally disprove it the second he says it. And it's so bad that it'll make you not want to play Roblox and make you wish that Roblox would actually take action against this guy instead of Schlepp.
I would ultimately share these two drawings, but I find that both of these drawings are rather innocent. Any other drawing that I have made that would be considered suggestive or explicit, I didn't share with him. The second image is a continuation. I told him that my drawings featured obscure kinks, but the only one I mentioned in passing was burping, and this in and of itself is not sexually explicit. This was a joke. I practice caution when messaging people and would never send the wrong thing to the wrong person.
But sorry to tell you this, but you send it to the wrong person when you sent it to a child. And again, you should not be talking about this specific awful things to a child that is a 14-year-old when you were 23. That is just not a normal thing to do. But the next thing that he does is very not normal, and it'll make you want to uninstall Roblox again, so Roblox loses another $12 billion. And it'll make you never want to play Regretevator ever again in your entire life.
But before sending that message, I expressed a desire to show more of my art to him. There was an explicit drawing of another ex-friend in a folder I had accidentally clicked on, but I already navigated away from that folder out of safety. What I did send him was this drawing of Charlotte from 1. Before this, we were talking about the ship Trife, or Trophy X Knife from Inanimate Insanity. I mentioned that I had changed my mind about hating it, and he explained that he still did. Since he said a sexual relationship between the two was unusual, I joked about how I didn't agree with it by mentioning a drawing I had seen. The only detail I brought up about the drawing was the fact that Knife had sharp teeth, and I didn't share anything further than that.
Honestly, I think this guy should get an award for not saying anything weird to a minor. Well, anything else weird to a minor, because that's something that he's known for now. But come on, dude. You should not be saying this type of stuff to a 14-year-old. I know I keep hammering that into people's heads, but I don't even think I should be able to do that, but I am. Because this is not normal. And what is especially not normal is what I'm gonna be revealing about how his community actually handled this after I'm done reacting to his response video. Because it was a completely 50-50 portion of his audience that actually thought it was good and bad that he did this. And some people, a lot of people, were actually agreeing with him. But I'm actually so glad that he's not that delusional to think that he can actually just send NSFW to a kid. I'm glad that didn't actually happen. But that's literally again just the bare minimum, which this guy clearly does not know the bare minimum at all. And in my last video, I literally say as a joke, if you're a groomer, you should not expose yourself, and this guy is literally exposing himself for being a groomer. Because in my opinion, the definition of a groomer is literally just messaging someone that's underage, things like this. And it doesn't matter if you just sent a picture of moldy piece of bread. I don't even know what that's supposed to be. Because it doesn't matter if you didn't actually send NSFW. You still had the intention of talking to a kid in a very sexual way. But in the next part of this video, he literally just slides past all of that and just acts like it's a normal thing to do to talk to a minor in a very sexual way.
This was a conversation about my Smash or Pass videos, directed at different object shows. Will agreed that people should be more upset about those directed at Pokemon rather than mine. I disagreed by joking that I had Rule 34 of Pokemon on my computer. I didn't explain any of these drawings in detail or share them with Will.
So you were joking or you didn't show the drawings? One of those two isn't making sense. So it's either you have the drawings or you were joking about having the drawings. Or you're just the stupid dummy that makes Smash or Pass videos on Roblox games for kids. But that's not the worst thing that he ends up talking about, because this next thing is significantly worse, and I'm assuming you'll make your guys' heads explode by how stupid it is.
He mentioned how he told me to stop making these kind of jokes because they made him uncomfortable. This is true, and in response, I promised I would never do it again. And in fact, I never did. I can understand how weird this message looks, but it was in reference to how I was comfortable with teasing and bullying him, like an older brother would. He mentions these messages were shared after he told me to stop making jokes about Rule 34, but this of course is unrelated. I did not share or describe any of what I was referencing here. A week later, on June 10th, he mentioned that I had said, I liked Total Drama Rule 34, which of course would be bad if it wasn't for the fact that the drawing in question was a solo of Chris McLean, an adult. But either way, like the other instances, I never described the drawing or shared it with him.
I'm glad again you did the bare minimum and stopped talking to a kid in a way in DMs. I'm so glad you did that. So congrats on never doing that again. I'm so glad. Maybe he just lives in one of those countries where the age of consent is or something. Because the way he's talking about this is just so fucking casual. And you are very right that this message is very weird because there's no excuse for it at all. You shouldn't be talking to a kid like this in the slightest. And the difference between you and a brother teasing him is that you're not his brother. You're not a family member in the slightest. This is just weird. But the next things that he says are just so weird that it'll make your heads explode.
On August 1st, he claimed I had groomed other people as well. This is also false, as these situations had never happened in the first place. And Will, with all of this said, I'm genuinely sorry that I had hurt you. While it wasn't my intention to do so, I recognize that you have been permanently changed by what I've done. If I knew what the result of all this would be, I would never have sent those messages. And that is everything that I can explain about my controversy.
So hopefully Will did not accept his apology, because I personally wouldn't, and most of the people that watched this video didn't, but there was a select few that did. With them saying that this type of stuff is okay and it's not considered grooming because it was online and it just doesn't seem like grooming, even though it is literally the definition of grooming. But here's just a few of the comments that I found delusional, and you'll probably think they're delusional too. Tell me in the comments section if you agree. It's something pin this. That's not grooming. Yes, the comments involving the mention of adult content can be taken a bit too far. However, you weren't trying to form a relationship with them in order to hurt them. It was a mistake, sure, but not grooming. Correct me if my take is wrong, but as a victim myself, I don't see grooming happening anywhere in this conversation. So this person just doesn't have eyes. Because you don't have to just be trying to get a relationship with a minor for it to be called grooming. And I also find it funny that it's something pin this comment as if it was right or something. Because it was just completely not right. But this next comment is just so much more delusional that it'll make you want to rip all your hair out. I'm not gonna lie, I did lose a lot of respect for you, but you regained a lot of respect from me due to how people are just using AI slop channels to literally milk this drama, and it's annoying as hell. That should not make you gain respect for someone that's literally a and a groomer. Just because people are making slop AI videos, which I also find annoying, I would never respect someone like this. And personally, I find that very distasteful that even anyone would even say that, because that is just so awful. But this next comment is just way worse. Just look at this. I watched this video once, then twice, to see if I missed something. Even watched it with my brother. I don't think that's grooming. I say this as someone that was groomed before. If you didn't, subject the person to NSFW, guilt trip them, comment weird and sexual charged conversations, then that shouldn't count as grooming. Sure, as I look through the comments on this video, it's not recommended to have conversations about Rule 34 with minors, but it's really about intention. He definitely hired someone on Fiverr to write this comment, because no one with the right mind would write this comment. And in my opinion, everything that this guy did was grooming, and everything that this guy did in this video was just terrible at explaining it. Now I'm gonna look at comments flaming this guy for the things that he has done that I think you guys will actually like after reading these terrible comments. And these comments will actually make you have faith in the new generation. I don't think you should be talking about how even mentioning Rule 34 to anyone below the age of 18. Maybe next time you should exercise caution when talking to anyone, that includes minors, a bit more carefully and better. And hey, try not to bring up any while you're at it. Even if you don't show nor share explicit art, it's still weird, TBH. Under no circumstances should an adult have this type of conversation with a minor, with or without malicious intent. In my opinion, I completely agree with all of these comments, and I think that the future generations are restored. But moral of the story, don't groom anyone.